Breaking tonight, a brutal truth the government won't say out loud, but I will tonight on this show and on this channel. Britain is facing a migrant crime epidemic. I've been watching my country from afar in recent months since I arrived in America, and to say I've been shocked at what's been going on back home is an understatement. So tonight I've decided to reel off as many examples of migrant crime as I can in just a few minutes, that's the most amount of time we've got to be frank, to highlight the sheer volume of the issue. And there are plenty more beyond these examples. And a warning, some of the details in this report may be distressing and viewer discretion is advised, but it is the cold, hard truth we need to face. Let's start with Afghan asylum seeker Shafullah Rasuli. Here he is, found guilty of sexually assaulting two women while working illegally as a food delivery driver in Maidstone. Kuwaiti national Mobarek Al-Maturi, found guilty of sexually assaulting a young girl in a shop and holding nearly 4,000 indecent images of children, some as young as 8 years old. Ethiopian national Hadush Kibatu, we all know him by now, found guilty of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman while staying at the Asylum Hotel in Epping. He was mistakenly released from prison, of course, before finally being deported, not before being paid £500 of your money, by the way, to go home. Elsewhere, Somali national Habi Kambadextra, found guilty of stabbing a man to death inside a high street bank after calling a migrant charity and saying he planned to kill 500 people. Let's go on, shall we? Romanian national Ian Pintaru, who pled guilty to wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm after stabbing an 11-year-old girl in Leicester Square. 4 Kurdish migrants, Hannah Hassan, Osama Kadir, Dawa Mantik and Yosef Shaban from Iran and Iraq, there they are on your screens, found guilty of roaming streets armed with machetes and knives. Tunisian migrant Hussein Noura and Sudanese migrant Ibrahim Zori, found guilty after chasing migrant hotel staff with knives because they didn't like the breakfast being served. Shall we go on? A Turkish national known only as KD found guilty of stabbing his wife, who then won the right to stay in Britain after arguing he might face anger from his in-laws back home. Sudanese migrant Deng Chol Majek found guilty of murdering hotel worker Rhiannon Sky White, stabbing her more than 20 times with a screwdriver. Romanian nationals Misia Marian Cumpelesu, Remu Stan, Catalin Dobre, Christian Urilantu and Alexandra Begona found guilty of running a grooming gang that raped and exploited 10 women in Dundee. Iranian migrant Amir Abedi Mofrad found guilty of raping a 15-year-old girl. By the way, he already had 11 assault convictions in Germany. Algerian national Sid Ali Jelid found guilty of raping 5 men and women in Manchester. Are you bored yet? I'm going to carry on. Congolese national Ancient Malaya found guilty of raping a 15-year-old girl and leaving her pregnant after multiple failed deportation attempts. Iranian migrant Abdullah Ahmadi and Egyptian nationals Karin al-Dassarat and Ibrahim al-Sheikh found guilty of raping a woman on Brighton Beach. Syrian brothers Omar and Mohammed Badarin found guilty of leading a grooming gang that raped a 13-year-old girl after threatening to kidnap her. Afghan asylum seekers Sadiq Nizrak found guilty of raping a 15-year-old girl after following her down a street. Afghan migrant Rapullah Daisy found guilty of raping a teenager after telling her he'd be her boyfriend. Syrian national Hadi al-Kumi found guilty of sexually assaulting 4 women in just 3 days. Egyptian small boat migrant Mustafa El-Bohi remanded in custody, accused of raping a woman twice after using Google Translate to tell her, "I want to F you." Romanian national Eugen Similak found guilty of raping a woman walking home alone in Cornwall. That's just a fraction of the examples we found today. It's a 2-hour show, so I haven't got the time to reel them off over the course of 2 hours, even though I could physically sit here now for 2 hours and fill the 2-hour show with example after example. These are the only ones that GB News has been able to compile before we came on air. There is no log of all the crimes committed by migrants, mainly because we probably don't even know who's in Britain to begin with. And just to put this in perspective, in Bournemouth alone, police have brought 116 charges against migrants staying at just 3 hotels. 116 charges against 116 migrants at 3 hotels. That's one small corner of Britain. Now, multiply that across every city, across every town, and across every street in the country. We're told most migrants are decent people, and of course, many are. But when the border is broken, predators walk right through. Britain isn't heartless, but it's becoming lawless. America, where I am today, defends its borders. Britain defends its excuses. And if the system can't tell the difference between a refugee and a rapist, then the system has no right to call itself fair or safe, because right now, the only thing being deported is trust. GB News has this evening contacted the Home Office for comment, and this is what they told us. When foreign nationals commit serious crimes in our country, we will always do everything in our power to deport them. Under this government, returns of people with no right to remain in the UK have surged with 35,000 people, a 13% rise compared to the previous year. Of the total returns since the election, nearly 5,200 were of foreign national offenders, an increase of 14%. We're now reviewing the domestic application of the the European Convention of Human Rights to change the way in which it is applied in immigration cases. I'm sorry to start the show on such a sombre note this morning at midnight, but as I said to Patrick in the last hour or so, when you watch your home country from afar, as I have across the Atlantic over this past couple of months, you can see from a bird's eye perspective the chaos that is being unleashed on the nation I love. Well, let's get the take.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade, and in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Former Conservative MP Louise Mensch, who's live now in New York this evening. Louise, good evening. Thank you for your company. As I said, I could go on and on and on for 2 hours. I don't want to bore the nation, but I wanted to give a flavour of what's happening back home in our home country as well. You're a fellow dual citizen, Louise. What's your take on what's going on in Britain at the moment?
I don't think anybody's going to be bored by that list, Ben. I think they are going to be appalled and really shocked. The fact is, it's not good enough to say most of these asylum seekers are fine. That really isn't good enough. Most people don't commit crimes. You have to look at the crimes that are being committed and say what proportion of those crimes, especially sexual violent crimes against young women, young girls, are being committed by foreign nationals, people that come into the UK illegally and sometimes legally. The current statistics, and we know these are the official statistics, so it's way more than that, admits that nearly 15% of the incarcerated prison population is foreign nationals. And those are the people that have been successfully prosecuted and actually put in prison. Is it really enough for the Labour Party to say we're going to change the way that the European Convention on Human Rights is being applied? Oh, please. That's just flannel. It's just wool. That's just all that is, because it's not up to the Labour Party to describe how it's going to be applied. It's up to activist judges. And right now, in the list there that you gave me, the one that so many stuck out, but the fact that a man literally murdered his wife and then some judge said, we can't send you back because your wife's parents might be a bit cross with you. You know, I think most people just won't understand the amount of logic that's putting this here. And if you want to push the UK into the so-called far right, you are going the right way about it. Zara Sultana insulted Nigel Farage today by saying, oh, he's a fascist. Why? Just because the man wants to get rid of the European Convention on Human Rights. In that case, Ben, guess what? You're a fascist to be compared to Hitler. I'm a fascist, apparently. And everybody watching your show is also a fascist. Is that all it takes?
Do you think those kind of slurs, do you think people take note of them anymore, being called a racist or far right or Hitler. I mean, it has got serious consequences, in political violence being one of them. We saw what happened to President Trump, 2 assassination attempts, Charlie Kirk, who was called Hitler, a Nazi and so on. He paid the ultimate price. But aside from the language, the political violence which it can encourage, do you think people actually care anymore about being called racist or far right? Does it have any weight anymore?
I don't think they do care that much about it, quite frankly, because it's thrown around like so much, I don't know, Halloween candy, as we would say over here. That's all it is. It's really just ineffective because it is so completely overused. And I never thought I would be sitting on GB News taking time to defend Nigel Farage. But I don't know if Sir Russell Thomas ever met the man. He's actually quite nice. He's actually quite affable. I'll be honest. He's a bit of a laugh. I thought that even when I opposed him more seriously than I do now. He's a very mainstream politician these days, against Putin. And like many people on the right, the centre right, he believes that something needs to be done about the list that you have just read out. And frankly, who is going to do something about it? That's what the British people want to know. They are sick and tired of this, and they are not fascists, they are not evil, and they are not wicked for wanting change, for wanting this to stop. You're from West Sussex. Some young girl just raped in a park by almost certainly an asylum seeker. I'm from East Sussex, and it makes my blood boil to think of our country essentially under siege like this, and it is under siege.
Yeah, Louise, do you get my point? Just before I let you go, we'll catch up again in the next hour. Do you get my point where I say that I've been here for 2 months in America and I've got a slightly different view of what's going on back home in Britain? Do you sympathise with the point I'm trying to make? Maybe not in a very good way, but it feels like I have a better view and a different perspective of what's happening in my home country compared to how I would have if I was there in the midst of it. Does that make sense to you?
I totally agree. As an expat and a dual citizen, I completely agree. Look, I am not a supporter of President Trump. Unlike perhaps most people on your show, I'm not a supporter of President Trump. And I don't believe that you should be deporting people without any kind of due process. However, I will say that what he has done is effective. And maybe we don't need to be sending people to gulags in El Salvador, but how about getting just a little bit of backbone, a little bit of the British Armed Forces patrolling, for example, the seashore to say, no, you can't come in, and turning them back across the channel? Is that so impossible? It seems that if the political will is there, which Margaret Thatcher had and Donald Trump does definitely have, if the political will is there, you can do something about it. And it is awful sitting here in America watching Britain go down this terrible dark path, because ordinary people are going to get angry. And when the British people, they are slow to anger, when they do get angry, get out of the way, because bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, indeed. Louise, thank you very much. I think patrolling your own borders sounds, it's a bit too controversial, I think, for this day and age, Louise. I think we'll put you in the far right bigoted box. Thank you. We'll catch up again in the next hour or so. Thank you. Right, gbnews.com/you'll say, Richard of Yorkshire. Good evening, Richard. Thanks for your company. You've said, if I get called a racist, I feel I've obviously hit the nerve of a snowflake woke lefty. Helps me sleep well at night. And Arne, good evening, Arne. You've said, seems like we're allowing an army of young men to take over Britain and feeding housing to them. It's a national disgrace. Freedom Truth, one more. Hi, Ben. How many rapes and stabbings by foreigners will need to happen before Open Border apologisers decide that it might be a good idea to be a bit stricter? Indeed. Thank you.